What's up guys, David Eisenhower here with Eisenhower Tree Care. Today we are going to talk about the do's and don'ts of pruning. This is a property that we took care of within the last month, and we're back here today. I'm doing a little bit more pruning on one of the trees, and we wanted to showcase just a really awesome tree. Here we have a sugar maple, and as you can see, it's got a really full canopy. All these lower limbs have been left on, which is just awesome. That's really one of the first things we'll talk about as a don't is do not take the lower limbs. You want to leave these guys. These things are awesome. They provide value to the tree directly to the trunk. If you were to cut this thing off, you're creating a wound in the tree, chance of decay traveling down the base, and you're also gonna push all the growth that the tree stores up to put foliage on this limb. You're gonna push that growth up to the rest of the canopy. Don't take lower limbs. You wanna leave those lower limbs and just do weight reduction on the ends of them. These were cuts that were already here. Yeah, they're not doing so hot right there. This one, I'm actually gonna do a little bit more pruning on this one. It's real long. We didn't wanna take too much, but they do want it a little bit, try to get it a little bit higher here. The next don't would be do not strip interior foliage. As you can see, this tree has had a chance to develop some of that interior foliage. The smaller secondary limbs that you can see throughout the canopy, those are adding value to those specific parts. When you strip out the interior of the tree, again, it's called lion's tailing, and you're pushing the growth to the ends of the branches, causing the tree to really get taller and those branches longer than they would if you left some of that interior growth. So that's the biggest don't. You don't want to strip out the interior. What we recommend is called selective thinning, which we do take some of the interior growth to make it more aesthetically pleasing, but we also leave it for the overall health of the tree. Another don't, I would say, is do not add mulch to the trunk of the tree. Let's take a little closer look. All this part of the trunk right here is called the root flare or the trunk flare. And this part of the tree needs oxygen. One of the worst things you can do is add mulch to the base of the tree. It's fine down here. This is where the mulch belongs, where the dirt is. But once you add mulch, you're choking out the tree. You're basically suffocating it, and you'll have issues down the road. You don't want to add too much mulch. You want to be very careful and leave it pretty much where the dirt is. This is another don't. You don't want to over prune. The rule of thumb is 25% of the entire canopy. That's typically how much you want to remove if you're doing maintenance to the tree. This does vary from species, so it really matters that you know how different trees respond to taking more than 25%. You know, there's trees that respond really poorly to taking that much, and you need to take a lot less. So it just depends on the species, and you really need to know that before you just start making cuts. So another one, I pointed this out earlier, watch your head. You don't want to prune too close to the trunk. Right here, this was a poor cut. You can see it because it doesn't have a chance to heal. It doesn't have a chance to heal up. I'm actually not so sure what I want to do with that because you can see it trying to heal around, but this cut was made a little bit too close. Probably, yeah, it's hard to see where it should have been made, maybe even out here. I think it was a little bit too close, but this has caused this part to die back and might be some decay later on, but we may try to clean that up today. Don't prune too close. When you're making a cut, there's something that's called the branch collar, and so the proper cut on this limb right here, if you were to be removing it, we wouldn't recommend this, but just for an example, it would be right about here. And you want to give the tree, that gives the tree enough mass right here to actually try to cover that up. The tree will just automatically do that. But if you cut too deep, you're creating a wound that the tree just can't heal from. That's one of the worst things that you can do. Very, very common to see this. You see large mature trees get absolutely destroyed because they get 3 or 4 lower limbs taken and they cut them right back to the trunk, and long term, that's just not good for the tree. So here is an example of a good cut that we made on this ash tree. You can see it's not too close to the lateral branch that we cut back to, but you know, it's going to have enough room to heal. I'd say the last one that I can really think of is you don't want to top a tree. Topping a tree is not always the best course of action. It does depend on species and location. There are some trees that we sometimes will recommend that because you know, you want to keep the tree, but it's not necessarily the best species, and so you want to manage those trees, and that's why you take them down. But typically we don't recommend to top trees. It's very situational. The main reason for that is when you do top a tree, you make a stub cut, you know, you bring the canopy down by half or maybe by a third, and you'll get multiple shoots that grow out from that spot that you cut. Those grow, and they grow taller than the tree was when you topped it, and they don't have that same structural integrity where you made the cut. Time and time again, you'll see those get really, really big again. The tree becomes actually more dangerous than it was in the first place. So again, the more you can leave just the natural structure of the tree and reduce the weight from the outside, that's really what you want to be doing. We'll talk about the do's now. These are the things that you should be doing when you're pruning a tree. First off, you want to start with clean tools. Always disinfect your tools. You know, it's very easy to cross-contaminate. If you're cutting on different species of trees, you're removing a tree one day that's diseased, and then you're pruning at a house with beautiful, large, mature trees. This is something that's commonly forgotten about when people are hiring a tree service is you know, it directly goes into the professionalism and knowing that you can transfer disease. It can very easily be done. And so you want to be taking responsibility as somebody who's cutting trees to be disinfecting your equipment every single time. It's just a practice of ours. We've implemented it into our systems, and our guys know that when they're cutting on trees, we're disinfecting all of our equipment on a regular basis. Next do, it's in regard to what I said, you don't want to take the lower limbs. See, what you do want to do is you want to take weight reduction from the exterior of the canopy or the end of the limb. You want to do that throughout the entire canopy. Not just the lower canopy, but you actually do want to go up into the top half of the canopy and be making subordination cuts, and cuts that are relieving stress on limbs and on certain stems of the trees. But this is actually a great example of one. We can take a walk around this way, and we'll pan up at the tree because it has multiple different stems. And what happens with these stems, they will all start competing with each other. There is a central stem up there, but all the surrounding stems that are growing, they begin to be in competition with that central stem. So what we've done is we went up into the top half of the canopy, and we've actually done the subordination cuts to try to tell those stems, hey, you're not the main stem. We don't want you competing with that main stem. So what it does is it pushes growth to the interior and towards the center, and it reduces the risk of those entire stems breaking, because that is just what happens in worst case scenario when a storm comes through. And really, that is, in a nutshell, what we try to do with trees. We try to prevent them from getting damaged when a storm comes. We want to do the preventative maintenance. We want to do the weight reduction in the canopy, but we also want to do the subordination at the top. It's often forgot about, and not everybody even tries to sell that tree work because it's harder to do. It typically requires equipment to get up to be efficient at it, but it's really what needs to be done for the trees. They have to be subordinated. If you're not doing subordination cuts on trees and trying to hone in those secondary stems that are in competition with the main stem, one of those are eventually going to break. That's just the bottom line. It's really sad when you go out to a call and there's a main stem of a huge oak tree down. The rest of the tree is healthy. It just didn't have the proper weight reduction and subordination done. And that's why you'll get a huge break out of a tree that is seemingly really healthy. There's no signs of decay, no signs of anything. It just got over leveraged when a storm came through. So really that's like, in a nutshell, what we try to do with trees is prevent them from getting damaged, falling on your house, falling on your property. Because again, these are trees in urban environments. That is what we specialize in. Mitigating the risk. It enhances the value the beauty of your property. That's really what we try to do. We try to balance those things. When we're looking at a tree, that is what we are looking for. We're looking for where is the tree holding weight, where we need to be making cuts, and also what risk does this pose to the family? Do the kids play outside here? Is it close to the house? Is it close to a pool? Is it close to whatever? We try to manage those obstacles, and we really have to do the proper subordination and the proper weight reduction. That's it in a nutshell. Okay, so another talk about a common question is, when is the best time to prune a tree? The best time to prune a tree really is end of winter, beginning of spring, right before the tree starts to push out all of the growth. There's a couple different reasons for that, but you can cut trees year round. They will just respond a little bit differently. It's very common practice to be cutting trees in the summertime, although there are certain species that really need to be cut and managed in the wintertime. A couple of these species that are prevalent to Kansas City are oak trees, both red and white oaks. Those need to be, if you're pruning live growth, they need to be pruned in the winter. If you prune them in the summertime, insects are more attracted to them and they become way more susceptible to disease. We prune all oak trees in the wintertime. Another species is American elm tree. They're susceptible to Dutch elm. Same concept. If you're cutting on them in the summertime, the insects are attracted to that sap and they carry the disease. We manage those trees in the winter as well. Another one I will say that is arguable, some people have different opinions, is the ash tree. I think it's the same concept. We choose to try to manage ash trees in the wintertime as well, because when you're cutting on them in the summer, we're treating the ash trees to try to prevent emerald ash borer from spreading and from the bugs from getting inside. But when you're cutting on them in the summertime, doesn't really make sense, because the insects are going to be attracted to that sap when you're opening up those wounds. Another do is prune for the structure of the tree. This pretty much goes into that subordination, what I was talking about. The structure of the tree is really, really important. When you're looking at a tree, we love to see a central stem with secondary limbs growing off of that center stem. It's typically a really good structured tree. A tree that splits from 2 or 3 at the bottom, that's known as a co-dominant stem tree. It basically, you have to manage them almost as 3 separate trees, because they all hold weight and they're all liable to break. You have to manage them with that in mind. So what we do is we really do try to think about where's the center of the tree. We want to try to reduce everything heavily besides that center point of the tree. That's where we want the growth to go. But if we can hone it in from the outside and really focus on that structure, that will make the tree stronger long term. If you manage your trees on a regular basis, it will really benefit you, because that's what we're trying to do year after year. We're trying to hone the trees in so they won't get broken, but they'll still grow really big, really strong, and be resilient in storms. This is actually a great example of that right here. We got a Siberian elm tree right here, and as you can see, it has 3 kind of stems that break off from about 10, 12 feet up. And what we did was heavily subordinate this one on the left-hand side. We brought it down drastically because there's actually visible decay in this tree up a little bit high in several spots, but they really love the tree. And so again, you have to manage the risk. There's always risk with trees in an urban environment. At Eisenhower Tree, we absolutely love to save trees. I will talk myself out of removals, because there are things that you can do to prevent a tree from having to be removed or having to come down. And this is one of them, is the proper pruning, the proper subordination. We did not top this tree, we subordinated it, and we're trying to send the growth up to the strongest stem that we determined was the strongest and what we felt was kind of the center, which was this one on the right. Over the years, we're going to continually cut back to those spots and really try to develop the interior canopy. And this is what the point I was making, that you don't want to strip the center of the tree. We left a lot of sprouts there because that is the future of the tree. As we continue to prune it down, oftentimes you can keep mature trees just by removing the weight and developing the inner canopy over a series of 5 or 10 years. You can really help manage the risk of the tree, but also keep it on your property to add to the value, add to the beauty. All right, so the last thing that I will say as a definite do is you want to use the right equipment. Do not use a ladder. A trained tree professional hardly ever uses ladders. We know the dangers involved with using them. Having the right tools is everything. We come to the job site prepared with hard hats, safety glasses, ear protection, chainsaw pants, steel-toed boots, chainsaw protective boots, all these measures to prevent serious injury from occurring. I know we've all had probably close calls in our lives. I've definitely almost lost an eye one time, and thank God nothing happened, but I wasn't wearing my safety glasses. And yeah, it can happen to anybody. Happens in less than in a split second. I'd say that's the last do. You want to make sure that you have some good safety equipment and really keeping safety in mind. All right, guys, thanks for checking us out. This is our list of do's and don'ts for tree pruning. If you found this helpful, please subscribe for more content like this. Or if you need a tree care professional to come and take a look at your trees, we'd love to do that for you. Hit the link in the description. We'll see you next time.